Birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, whatever the occasion, it just got a little more personal with meaningful photo gifts from Shutterfly. Add a silly photo to a gold-rimmed mug for your bestie. Put your sweet puppy on a cozy fleece blanket for your teen. Gift your husband a desktop plaque featuring all the kids. Enjoy 40% off orders over $29 with code POD40 at Shutterfly.com and make something that means something.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first. Like you know to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
I think I just won my taxes.
Yeah?
I just switched to H&R Block in about 1 minute. All I had to do was drag and drop last year's return into H&R Block, and bam, my information is automatically there.
So I don't have to go digging around for all my old papers to switch?
Nope.
Sounds like we just leveled up our tax game.
Switching to H&R Block is easy. Just drag and drop your last return. It's better with Block.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. Sometimes the most painful part of getting sick is the getting better part. Waiting on hold for an appointment, sitting in crowded waiting rooms, standing in line at the pharmacy, that's painful. Amazon One Medical and Amazon Pharmacy remove those painful parts of getting better with things like 24/7 virtual visits and prescriptions delivered to your door. Thanks to Amazon Pharmacy and Amazon One Medical, healthcare just got less painful.
You are now listening to the Dynasty Rewind.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Dynasty Rewind. I'm your host, Michael Bauer, the best in the business, back in business, joined as always by my faithful co-host, Nate, the Professor Christian. Nate, hello and welcome back. How are you?
Thank you, Mike. As always, happy to be here. You might notice a little bit different background this evening. If you're watching on YouTube, I have moved things around in my office. It's still a work in progress, so there's some books over there. Those shelves aren't full yet. I got my drum kit behind me, my piano. I'm going to take the moment to plug myself. I released a song 2 Fridays ago called Satellites. You can find it under Nate Christian, Spotify, Apple Music, wherever you listen to music. I'm also dropping a song this month, February, the week after Valentine's Day, so the 21st. I'm going to be trying to drop a song every single month this year, Mike. That's my 2025 goal. So far, so good. So, plug for myself, Nate Christian. Check out my music.
So release a song one a month, and then January of 2026, combine them all together, put out an album on Bandcamp. Why not?
Bandcamp, yeah. I used to use Bandcamp.
Yeah, what do you have to lose? So while you're on Spotify, checking out Satellites, highly recommended. You can go ahead and you can click subscribe to the Dynasty Rewind if you have not done so already. I believe you can rate us on Spotify. I don't know if you can necessarily review us. But if you could leave us a review wherever you can, it is always greatly appreciated. And hey, while you are clicking on things, click on the link below, order some merch. Nice hoodie. It's February. There's still plenty of time for hoodies. Nate's got one on too. Mine's very old at this point. I believe this was the first Dynasty Rewind sweatshirt.
OG.
Yeah. And then buy some merch, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Come check us out for a week for free. But Nate, we're going to be talking about some early offseason rankings. And look, we've been scouting for a little bit now. We don't have anything finalized. And of course, rankings are going to change after the draft when these guys have landing spots, all that good stuff. We can see what scheme they're in, where they are, what their competition is in training camp in the offseason. But we're looking at wide receivers today. So, Nate, you and I have also been talking a long time about this is not the strong point of this class. After doing some more scouting on the wide receiver position, I could say I feel a little bit better about it.
Okay.
I really can. But let's start off. Now, we we had a discussion about this the other night. We're still not 100% sure where to rank Travis Hunter. And go ahead, sound off down below and tell us where you think Travis Hunter should go. Okay, but we want to talk about him a little bit. So we're not excluding him, but we still don't know. Is he going to be a defensive back? Is he going to be a wide receiver? I'm sure there's a team out there that's going to let him do a little bit of both. Okay, also for the record, in the film cut-ups I saw, I didn't see him do it. I think he would be a fantastic punt and kick returner. Very dynamic with the ball in his hands. One thing I will mention, if you look at his stats, are his receiving stats the best? Are they Heisman worthy? No. What I will tell you is this. It's not his fault. There were a lot of times he had to adjust to underthrows from Shedeur Sanders. When you have a player that fast on the outside, you need to get the ball out of your hands faster. Let him run and catch up to it and get it. He is fast enough. He can do that.
Sure.
Used at the line of scrimmage a lot too. If you saw that, Nate, but he's dynamic. He's versatile. I'd love to see him on some more end around, jet sweep, stuff like that. He could definitely do it. Do you have any initial thoughts on Travis Hunter?
Yeah, he's extremely athletic, obviously very, very good. And, I understand saying like his stats, at the wide receiver position, maybe didn't look like the Heisman kind of winning wide receiver stats like we saw from like Devonta Smith when he won the Heisman. But Travis Hunter was still top 5 in every single category of receptions, receiving yards, and receiving touchdowns. Led the Big 12 in a couple of those as well. So he did put up pretty good numbers. Sanders, obviously, we can debate, and we will in a couple of weeks, about his NFL future. But either way, a very good college quarterbacks. They hooked up for a lot of yards. And I think Travis Hunter can do so much. And if he does end up being a full-time wide receiver or even part-time enough to really make an impact for fantasy football, he might be a top 3 wide receiver for me. I think he's that talented. And I think this class doesn't really have enough competition to really push him out of the top 3. But we did, you said we didn't exclude him, but we did kind of exclude him tonight from our top 5 rankings, which is why we wanted to just briefly discuss him here, because we both think that Travis Hunter is very talented. And if he was a full-time wide receiver, like I said, top 3 guy for me, I think he would have a huge ceiling as an athlete, as a wide receiver, as some guy who could, do something on kick returns, punt returns, like you mentioned. He's very versatile, obviously. So did want to talk about him, but until we really understand what his future looks like at the NFL level, we are just going to talk about straight up wide receivers moving forward.
Yeah. All right. Very good. So Nate, let's kick it off. We are going 5-1. We're wiping back to front again, the proper way to do it. So why don't you kick it off?
I think the females might disagree with you there.
Yeah. Guys out there, if you are expecting a child and you're having a little girl, that is humor. Do not wipe your child like that. Get away with it with boys. When you take the prenatal classes, they'll explain to you why you can't do it. So the more you know. But Nate, who is your number 5 wide receiver in this class right now? And I just want to say, again, the caveat, it is February 4th. I almost said December 5th. I'm a little off. It's February 4th when we're recording this. So things will change between now and then. Definitely. We'll keep you updated. But who is your number 5 current wide receiver in the 2025 rookie draft class?
My wide receiver rankings are very fluid at the moment. Number 1, we're early on. Number 2, I don't have a lot of space in between these guys right now. But number 5 right now, I have Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State, coming in 6'4", 210 pounds. This guy did really well at the Senior Bowl this past week. He was one of the standouts there. And what I really like about Jaden Higgins is, number 1, his size, 6'4", 210. He uses his size well. He could probably gain a couple pounds, but honestly, he's physical enough where he doesn't need to add more weight. He's actually a pretty good route runner for 6'4". I was impressed with how smooth he was throughout his routes and at the top of his stem. Great catch radius, of course. And someone that, for me, was a difference maker. Iowa State did have 2 different wide receivers catch 1,000 yards. And Higgins was one. Jalen Noel was the other one, who we're probably going to be talking about at some point on the podcast. And for me, Jaden Higgins, just great concentration in contested catch situations, is definitely an outside wide receiver. He did line up outside 82.8% of the time, was only in the slot 17% of the time. So we do know, moving forward, he's going to be the X at the next level, definitely an X receiver. With Higgins, I think he's a day 2 pick. I think I'm probably a bit higher on him than most people, having him at wide receiver 5 right now. But like I said, my rankings are fluid. I don't know if that'll stick. I don't know if he'll be in my top 5 a month from now. But right now, when I'm going through initial film, I really like what I saw from Jaden Higgins. I think, he was dominant at the catch point many times. And like I said, moved a lot better than I expected for his size. So between those two things, this is a guy that I think can make a difference in the next level, be a second round, third round pick, and make an impact early on. And I feel better about him than some of the other day 2 picks that we're going to be talking about later on.
Okay, great. So Jaden Higgins, haven't had a chance to look at him yet. But I like what I'm hearing. The only concern, Nate, yak rack of 3.8. Come on.
Yeah, this guy's not going to get any yards after the catch. I will say that. Jaden Higgins is a good route runner, good in the contested catch situations, a better athlete than I kind of expected, but he's not going to really give you much after the catch. But, he's an X receiver. He's going to be a guy that can win down the field. He can be a possession kind of alpha X as well, like on slant routes and things like that. So that's where his strengths are after the catch. Yeah, he's basically falling down. So
okay. All right. So number 5, Nate has Jaden Higgins, wide receiver from Iowa State. So let's talk about my number 5. We were just chatting last night, a couple nights ago, actually, and Nate was like, hey, have you watched this guy yet? I hadn't. And he bumped some people out because I have Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden at my number 5. Nate, you're right. I really like this guy. Speed for days, really quick release off the line. I saw him used all over the field, and I think that's important too. Now, with his size, he is not the biggest guy in the world. PFF has him at 6 foot, 195 pounds. So
yes.
not a detriment, right? We've seen guys smaller than that still be productive in the NFL, but quick, fluid body movements, fantastic hands. And the thing that I think separates him from a lot of other players in this class, one thing that I love to see, maybe it's good coaching, maybe he's just born with it, maybe it's Maybelline, is his situational awareness along the sidelines. And what I mean by that is, tough catches, because Quinn Ewers, who had a year of eligibility left, we'll be talking about this in 2 weeks, probably should have used it, maybe not at Texas, but somewhere else. He threw a lot of balls that were uncatchable. Although I guess if you think about it, put it where either your receiver can get it or nobody can get it, then it is a good ball. But the situational sideline awareness, getting at least 1 foot, sometimes 2 feet inbound, making NFL-style catches as a collegiate athlete is absolutely fantastic. Loved his ball tracking, loved his ability to adjust while the ball's in the air. Yeah, I really liked it. And I saw a lot of good over-the-shoulder catches, too. So Quinn Ewers has the arm strength to hit this guy in stride, and he was doing it. I liked that a lot. I don't know where he's going to be drafted. I do not think he's a day 1 draft pick, maybe late day 2, mid to late day 2-ish. I just feel like being 6 foot 195, he's going to be shoehorned into the consensus around him will be shoehorning him into a slot wide receiver, possibly. But I do think he could potentially be.
But Mike, I'm just going to talk about Matthew Golden myself because spoiler alert, Matthew Golden's my wide receiver 4 right now.
Let's go.
So this rolls right into it. Number 1, he's going to be a flanker at the next level. I think 6 foot is fine. I think once you get to like 5'10" and below, that's where you start to get really size concerns. Like 6 foot, I mean, like Chris Olave, Garrett Wilson, they're like 6 foot, 6'1". So we're all around kind of like that area. He's going to be a flanker at the next level, definitely plays outside a lot more than he does in the slot, does have some versatility to play in the slot, but mostly going to be that Z at the next level. This is a guy that I also was very, very impressed with his ball tracking ability, to find the ball over the shoulder deep down the field, and also his ability around the sideline and to make those NFL-style catches and catches outside of his frame. 2 of the highest categories that I gave him grades are in ball tracking and body control. So I am right there with you and, seeing that and being really excited about it. I feel like Matthew Golden, outside of those 2 things, I don't have a lot of really high grades in any category, but he just does everything pretty well. He is a very solid wide receiver from what I've watched. I didn't have great numbers on his speed. I think he accelerates well, but I think his top speed kind of maxes out earlier than I thought it would. I was watching the Arizona State game. There's one where he gets the ball, kind of gets into open space, and they catch up to him pretty quickly. Actually, might have been the Georgia game. I'm trying to remember between the 2 of them. But, I don't think that top speed's there. It's not a huge deal for the wide receiver position. I think the quickness and the agility is there enough that we're not going to be too worried about it. As a route runner, a very sudden route runner who runs his routes with conviction, good use of his head to freeze defenders, a good mix of routes that he ran while he was at Texas. And he's very quick off the line of scrimmage. So I liked his route running. I thought his hands were pretty decent. But that ball tracking, body control, definitely a huge area for him. And then after the catch, good, not great. His yak rec was 5.64 per reception over his college career. So that's just about average for me. Once you get to like 6 or 7, that's where we start getting a little excited about it. So Matthew Golden, a player that I think just checks a lot of boxes, does a lot of things very well, is going to translate to the pro level pretty quickly, pretty easily. I agree with you. I don't really foresee him being a first-round pick. I have seen him jump into first-round mocks recently, like in the 20-ish picks. And I think that might be just kind of the class. If I have him as wide receiver 4, usually we do see 4 wide receivers picked in the first round at least. So, it might just be a little bit of, not a ton of supply at the wide receiver position gets him booted up a little bit. I don't know if he's a first-round pick. I definitely think he's a second-round pick. I think, especially in this class, I think he's going to be early day 2 pick.
Okay, very good. So recapping that, I have Texas wide receiver Matthew Golden at number 5, unless I'm doing this wrong. Yep, number 5, and Nate has him at number 4.
And another thing, Mike, Matthew Golden has a touchdown every 6 catches.
That is impressive.
It's very impressive. He knows how to find the end zone.
Now, you were just saying, talking about high yak recs. Tell me what you think about this. How does a yak rec in 2024 of 7.7 sound?
That sounds pretty darn good.
How does a career yak rec of 6.4 sound?
Pretty solid.
That's why my number 4 is Ole Miss wide receiver Trey Harris. Now, Nate, I know you're not the biggest fan, and that's okay.
Yeah. He is outside of my top 5. I will not be talking extensively about Trey Harris tonight.
No, but that's okay. I'm going to tell you why I like him. You want a big physical outside receiver? Here you go. Trey Harris coming at you. 6'3", 210. And look, Ole Miss, they like these big physical guys. A.J. Brown, DK Metcalf.
Mm-hmm.
Right? These guys are big. They're tough dudes. Trey Harris could be that next guy. Now, in only 8 games last year, 1,030 yards. He averaged 17.2 yards per reception with 7 touchdowns. That was the 7-7 yak rec year. And look, there was a year where he only had 4.5 yards of yak rec, or however you want to quantify that, to bring his career average down to 6.4. But still, what I saw for Trey Harris, great ball tracking, solid hands, albeit not a pure hands catcher. Okay.
Mm.
But there were some situations where that just wasn't a possibility for him. Just kind of had to look it into where he could get it. Separation I thought was good, not the best, but very good in traffic too. The size and the physicality will do that. One concern I do have, I would love to see him shed defenders a little bit better. He could shed off one, but there are guys where after the catch, they could either, slip away a little bit better or just straight up maul you. He doesn't really do that. Not going to shake a ton. I think he could be a deep threat at the next level. The speed is not elite, but just with his frame and his route running technique, he could definitely get past a guy. Solid contact will get him down and get him off of his routes. There is also one thing, and I'm starting to see why people are down on Ole Miss quarterbacks, just watching Jackson. And I like Jackson Dart a little bit. We're going to be talking about him more in a few weeks. But the way they used Trey Harris was a little confusing to me. A guy like this should be used more like, I'll just say A.J. Brown. It's a lazy comp, but whatever. I'll just use it for right now. Get him down the field. Get him on slants in the middle of the field. There was a lot of screens and comebacks close to the line of scrimmage. That's not his game.
Yeah.
I don't think that he's better suited for that. You could do so many other things with him, and it's just not that. He doesn't have the lateral agility to really be effective there, and the ability to shed defenders to be used that close to the line of scrimmage. So that's just the one knock I have on him. Maybe it's not on him necessarily. That's Lane Kiffin or whoever's calling the plays down there at Ole Miss. So to recap, at number 4, I have Ole Miss wide receiver Trey Harris. And Nate, unless you have anything to add, you can go to your number 3.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of Trey Harris. Kind of reminds me of Gabe Davis, which isn't a bad thing, but a little limited.
Don't do that to me.
So you take your Gabe Davis, and I'll move on. I'll move on
Sure.
to possibly the best wide receiver in the class, to be honest. But currently my wide receiver 3, and that's Emeka.
I got to stop you right there because I'm thinking the same thing right now. I'm like, this guy could be the best pro wide receiver, but I can't put him at number one.
Yeah,
We'll explain why.
There's guys ahead of him that have more physical talent, more potential, more upside. But I don't know if there is a more pro-ready, safe pick at the wide receiver position in this draft class than Emeka Egbuka. And, we know Ohio State wide receivers do well. And also, Egbuka went back for his senior year of college. So he had 4 years with Brian Hartline. He was productive all 4 of those years outside of a couple injuries in 2023, which kind of held him back another year. But Egbuka, he's got all the speed that you need. He's very fast out of the gate and can get into open space with just a little bit of room. It's very sudden off the line of scrimmage, great pacing in his routes, doesn't have a lot of wasted movement in his breaks. And he finds like open space and zone coverage very, very well. He's very good at getting open, whether it's man coverage, zone coverage. This guy separates very well. He's got good hands. He comes back to attack the ball. He does do a little bit of that Garrett Wilson jump to catch the ball sometimes. Maybe that's just an Ohio State thing. Maybe Brian Hartline's teaching them that. I'm not sure because usually you don't want to leave your feet when you're going to catch the ball. And he's not like much of a above the rim player. He's not going to be that contested catch guy, but he's got late hands. And those late hands help him get in tight windows when the defender is on him, helps him make sure that he's able to make that catch without a lot of noise from the defender. So I really like Emeka Egbuka. He's versatile. He's going to be – a lot of people are going to say he's a slot guy at the next level. And he did play 72% of his snaps in the slot. But I could also see him playing as a flanker if needed. I think he gives some versatility. I don't think he's going to be limited to the slot at the next level. They don't want to limit him to the slot. But I'm sure you're going to say the same, Mike. This guy is another player that checks a lot of the boxes, looks ready to go at the next level. And he's going to be a plug-and-play player. I think Emeka Egbuka is a first-round pick. I think it's definitely a back half of the first round. But high floor, I'm not going to say low ceiling because we've seen guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown and these players who don't have like the immense physical talent still be really, really good at the next level. So I'm not going to say that Egbuka has a low ceiling, but I do definitely think he has a high floor.
Yeah, I agree. I pretty much mirror everything you said. I love the late hands, the sure-handed. NFL mock draft database has him projected in the first round, 21st pick overall right now.
Sounds
so I
right.
absolutely agree with what you're saying. I will say he's a tough player, albeit not overly physical. I don't know if that makes sense. He could take it. He doesn't really dish it out a ton from what I've seen. But his ability to get open in pretty congested traffic, and he's used on a lot of screens. Very focused, the situational awareness along the sidelines. Again, I was talking about that previously. He does it even better than Matthew Golden as well. So this is a guy, I love it, and a great release off the line as well. So that I'm mirroring what you said. Nate, you have Egbuka. I don't know if it's Emeka or Emeka. I don't know. Please let me know in the comments which it is. You have him at number 3. I have him at number 3 as well. And again, these things could definitely change. Yak Rek on the year, 5.9, not the best, but still 1,000-yard season, 10 touchdowns, and a national championship. You're not going to complain about that.
Yeah.
This episode is brought to you by Allstate. Some people just know they could save hundreds on car insurance by checking Allstate first, like to check the date of the big game first before you accidentally buy tickets on your 20th wedding anniversary and have to spend the next 20 years of your marriage making up for it. Yeah, checking first is smart. So check Allstate first for a quote that could save you hundreds. You're in good hands with Allstate. Savings vary. Terms apply. Allstate Fire and Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Northbrook, Illinois.
We're so done with New Year, New You. This year, it's more you on Bumble. More of you shamelessly sending playlists, especially that one filled with show tunes. More of you finding Geminis because you know you always like them. More of you dating with intention because you know what you want. And you know what? We love that for you. Someone else will too. Be more you this year and find them on Bumble.
All right, Nate, let's get back into it and let's finish it off. Who do you have at number 2?
All right. I struggled with this, Mike. I really did. I think a lot of people who've kind of been paying attention know who the last 2 wide receivers are left. And it's easy to want to just say 1A, 1B. I don't think either one really separated from the other when I was watching them. But I did decide to put Ted McMillan at wide receiver 2. I do love Ted McMillan. He's a long strider. I think athletically he leaves a little bit to be desired, but that's understandable when you're as big as he is. At 6'5", 212 pounds, probably a couple pounds more on him by the time he actually gets to the NFL. I could see him ending up being around 225. He has that a little bit of Mike Evans to him. And while I believe Mike Evans ran like a low 4.4. That guy is actually insanely athletic. I expect McMillan to probably run in the 4.5s. I don't think he's quite got that long speed. He's definitely a long strider. And if he gets up to speed, he's going to be able to get behind the defense and make something happen. But he doesn't have a lot of different gears on his buildup and his acceleration. Sometimes it seems to be like a little bit in slow motion. I don't think it's an issue, but he's not a quick guy. So athletically, I do have some, concerns about McMillan. But moving on from the athleticism, there's not a lot of concerns. He's a good route runner. He uses his head well, throws in some deeks to get defenders to commit. He's not going to stop on a dime at the top of his route, but he does move pretty well for his size. And he is a little loose at times with his route running, but he's pretty good off the line. He wins with speed and forces the corner into a leverage position that, if he's going outside, he knows how to leverage corners off the line of scrimmage. So that was really nice to watch, especially with, his size. Once he gets that leverage, Noah Fafita, his quarterback, knew that he could just throw it up to McMillan, and McMillan's coming down with it. And that's really where, I mentioned that, someone earlier, I think it might have been Egbuka, is not really an above the rim kind of player, but McMillan is absolutely an above the rim kind of player. Absolutely dominates in contested catch situations, a ton of highlight plays. His ball tracking, I think, is the best in the class, even better than, Matthew Golden, who we were really talking about earlier. He works back to the ball every single instance. He's never one to let the ball come to him. He's always attacking. He's got huge mitts out there, and he's always getting two hands on it. This is a guy that doesn't leave his feet unnecessary. He's got a great catch radius, great sideline awareness as well to be able to contort his body through those contested catch situations. And he's very concentrated as well in those contested catch situations to not let the defender bother him. Now, not a guy that's going to give you a lot of yak. I think he actually could have been more physical with the corners in those contested catch situations, but I think that kind of plays with his style where he's just concentrating on catching the ball. He's not really going to let the defender bother him. So he's not really going to, be physical and push back with the cornerback. He's just going to make sure he's going to catch the ball. So McMillan, definitely a first round pick, definitely someone that we put and as like an alpha X outside wide receiver. But for me, wide receiver 2.
All right. And he's projected to be a first round pick. Consensus is the 6th pick to the Raiders, which would be interesting. Raiders still need a quarterback.
They do.
So it's going to be interesting to see.
Unless Tom Brady comes out of retirement.
Ooh, gross. You had made the comment, you and I were texting the other day about, maybe Pete Carroll patches it up with Russell Wilson.
Yeah.
Would be interesting. Would make the Steelers' decision a lot easier too.
Sure would.
Just go ahead and resign Justin Fields. Also, if you want to find some great film on Ted McMillan, look for his game against New Mexico. It was week 1 last year, 10 catches on 15 targets, 304 yards and 4 touchdowns.
Yeah.
So yes, averaging 30.4 yards per reception. Absolutely insane. He also had another game over 200 yards. That was against West Virginia, 10 for 202. Only 1 touchdown there though, Nate. It's a shame. I'm not going to talk too much about your number 2 wide receiver, Ted McMillan, because I'm going to talk about my number 2 wide receiver first, and that is Missouri's own Luther Burden. I love me some Luther Burden. It's like a 1A, 1B situation between him and my number 1. You could probably guess who it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
I can tell you. He's a hands catcher. He's great. Ball tracking is good. Burst after the catch is great. He's fantastic on screens. He can run more than just short, close to the line stuff, screens, all that good stuff. Shrugs off contact well. Fights as hard as he can after the catch. Strong in traffic, but he also gets open. I like seeing him used as a runner, so he's got a little bit of versatility in there as well. The awareness along the sidelines, again, fantastic. This is what separates top 5 from not top 5 wide receivers in this class. He was used a lot close to the line of scrimmage. I don't know why I was saying line of the scrimmage. 85% in the slot, 81% in his sophomore season, yet only 12% In his freshman season, he was used out wide 85% of the time. So look, you're going to hear people on Twitter, X, Reddit, wherever you get your fantasy football advice online. I don't know. It should be patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. People might be saying he's slot only. He's not. Okay. This guy could play all over the field. Look at his stats from this year. It was kind of a down year statistically, 61 for 676 and 6. I think he was just doing what he was asked to do. Missouri wasn't the best team. Brady Cook, not the best quarterback. This kind of is what it is. But I like Luther Burden. I will tell you why he is not my number one when I get to my number one. But why don't you piggyback off of my number two? And I guess tell me who your number one is, because it's the same guy.
Yeah, my number one wide receiver right now is Luther Burden.
Okay.
And I say that honestly without a ton of conviction. But because we go back to the 1A, 1B thing with Burden, McMillan. In other draft classes, I think there's wide receivers that probably end up being the wide receiver one a bit more bona fide wide receiver one in this class. But Burden, you can't watch Luther Burden and not get excited. I mean, athletically, one of the most gifted wide receivers in the class. Not just because he's fast, he's great acceleration, can shoot the gaps between defenders at the second level, he can stop and start, but also he's strong. He's a very strong wide receiver too. Mike, do you have his height and weight? I don't have it on my card for some reason, but I believe he's over 200 pounds. He's kind of got that Debo Samuel kind of build and usage while he was at Missouri. He's someone that's going to make you pay after the catch, kind of like a running back. He's got that kind of build to him, that kind of frame, that kind of physicality. He was a better route runner than I expected when I turned on the film. I thought, okay, Luther Burden, this is a guy that obviously has a lot of gifts and can do stuff after the catch, but is he truly that, wide receiver that we want to see, a pure wide receiver? And while I think there are some other guys that run better routes in this draft class, I was impressed with what Luther Burden was able to do. They did use him in motion a lot. He did not run a very full route tree at Missouri, a lot of manufactured touches. And that's why I don't say this with a ton of conviction, because we did have a down year his junior season. I do blame Missouri for that more than Burden himself. But there was a lot of manufactured touches. He only had 61 receptions, 676 yards this year versus last year, 86 receptions for over 1,200 yards. So last year, we really saw him take off. This year, he took a step back. I want to blame the Missouri offense because overall that offense did not look good. Maybe Cody Schrader was the glue holding that thing together this entire time. But his hands are great. He's another guy that body control and ball tracking, very, very good at both of those things. But the versatility, the physicality, the yak ability, that's where Luther Burden does so well. And I think that just fits the modern NFL so well that he's able to transition from the catch to making something happen after the catch so quickly, able to make people force missed tackles, and teams are going to love that. And with all that potential, as he continues to grow as a wide receiver, because this is a guy that his freshman year, it's a 5-star recruit, went to Missouri his true freshman year. They used him almost totally on screens. They just wanted to get him involved because they knew what he could do after the catch. So he's still growing as a wide receiver. So as long as that growth still continues, I think that Luther Burden has the highest ceiling in this draft class. And that is why I picked him over Tet McMillan, who I do believe very highly in Tet McMillan. But the best wide receiver out of this class very well could be Luther Burden. And that's why he's my wide receiver one.
And his height and weight, 5'11", 208.
Yeah, that's a stocky build right there.
Yeah. So Luther Burden is your number two. My number one, you've guessed it by now, is Arizona's Tet McMillan. I'm going to tell you why Tet McMillan is my number one, and you actually answered my question for me. You're saying a lot of his touches, Luther Burden's that is, were manufactured. And I don't think that's his fault. I think that is Missouri's fault. I do think he has a good ability to get open, but still strong in traffic. Luther Burden, by the way, consensus first-round pick, 17th overall pick to the Bengals, courtesy of NFL Mock Draft Database. Not a sponsor, but you can be again. Hit up the link below, NFL Mock Draft Database. We'd love to work with you guys again. That being said, Tet McMillan, you don't need to manufacture touches for him. Tall, long striding, Does he lack some physicality, Nate? Yes, I agree with you that he does, but another guy with great ball tracking, great situational sideline awareness. Now, one thing I will say, I thought that his release was bad, and then I watched it more. I rewound some things. I don't think he has a slow or bad release. I think his release is deceptive. He knows when to use his speed off the line of scrimmage. Sometimes he looks a little lazy, maybe trying to sell that they're going to run, and then he explodes past the guy. However, Tet McMillan, despite the fact that he has back-to-back 1,300-yard seasons and 18 touchdowns in those 2 seasons, he was, believe it or not, held back by his quarterback. There was a lot of adjusting to underthrows. There was a lot of overthrows that he couldn't get to. And it's one of those things where, they were saying on the broadcast that I was watching, oh, they're best friends. That's great. Well, guess what? I've been best friends with people or friends with people. And if they hold you back, you got to get yourself a new friend. It's that easy because this quarterback was holding Tet McMillan back. He could be used everywhere on the field. He's going to be saying, hey, he's an outside receiver only. And yeah, you know what? Let's see. 76.6% of his career snaps in college were out wide, but he played in the slot a little bit. 22.9. Yeah, correct, Nate. Not the best, 5.5. But hey, he had to slow down for a lot of catches too. He is a slender guy, but for his frame, 6'5", 212, he's as physical as he can be. I would like to see a little bit more of that. I like him. I like Tet McMillan a lot. That's why I have him at number 1. But it was not an easy decision for me to make.
Yeah, I think the top 3 in this draft class is pretty strong.
Yeah.
I think after the top 3, we get into, pick your flavor, who do you like, who do you want, based on scheme and body size and style of play. But McMillan, Burden, Egbuka, I don't think you really go wrong with any of those 3.
Yeah, I agree. Nate, before we head out for the evening or the day, depending on when you're listening to this, are there any other quick hitters that you want to talk about wide receivers in this class?
Yeah, just real quick. One is Isaiah Bond, Matthew Golden's teammate over in Texas, transferred to Texas from Alabama, where he was putting up pretty good numbers and then didn't really have the hit this season with Texas that he probably hoped for. But Isaiah Bond is someone that could really grow in the pre-draft process. He's probably going to let the combine. He's very, very fast. He's a better route runner than I think a lot of people give him credit for. So it's going to be interesting to see if Isaiah Bond's able to put together a pre-draft process that gets him, into the second round. I think he's probably a day 2 pick at the moment. Can he get into like that early day 2? And from there, at the next level, is he allowed to be someone that can stretch the field and run a multitude of different routes? Or is he going to end up just being a field stretcher? Where he's supposed to be, creating a lot of space for other people, because he definitely has that ability too. We talk about it every year. There's a couple guys that are really fast and have some other skills, but NFL teams end up relying on their speed to be that field stretcher. And that's just not a very productive role for fantasy football. So I wonder with Isaiah Bond, what that looks like for him at the next level. And then another player I wanted to bring up is Jack Beck, former wide receiver from LSU, ended up transferring to TCU. Actually, when he went to LSU, he was kind of looked at as a wide receiver, tight end mix. They weren't really sure how they were going to use him. He ends up going to TCU, and this past year was very, very productive at TCU. Caught the ball for over 1,000 yards, had 9 touchdowns, 6'2", 215. So he's a big guy, separated really well at the Senior Bowl, had a really good Senior Bowl performance. So he's someone that people are really starting to catch on to as well. So he should be a top 10 wide receiver in this draft class, and we'll see what he can do over the pre-draft process.
Yeah, perfect. And I liked what I saw from good old Jack down there at the Senior Bowl.
Yeah.
Saying it like I was there. I wasn't. Yeah, I got 2 for you guys as well. And one is Oregon wide receiver Tez Johnson. You might remember from the Penn State game in the conference championship game, 11 catches, 181 yards, and a touchdown. He averaged 16.5 yards per reception. Nate, he's got a career yak rec of 7.9. That includes stops at, I can't see because my monitor's away, Troy and Oregon. The concern with him is he's very small, 5'10", 165. So you want to talk about a guy who's going to –
Mike, I think he came into the Senior Bowl at like 158.
Oh, even worse.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about a guy who's going to need manufactured touches. Tez Johnson is that guy, but still we see the skills that are there when he gets the ball in his hands. Very elusive, Doesn't take a lot of big hits either.
No, he kind of reminds me of like Tyler Lockett, where he knows like how to get down, when to get out of bounds. Also another small player. I love Tez Johnson. I was kind of disappointed he didn't make my top 5. He's right outside, but the frame is definitely concerning. Though we've seen guys, Tank Dell unfortunately just suffered a pretty bad injury, but not really because of his size. It was just unfortunate. Yeah. So we've seen smaller players perform in the modern day NFL. So I'm not too worried about Tez, but he is very small. I don't think he necessarily needs a ton of manufactured touches because he's a really good route runner. But he is going to be limited to the slot at the next level, most likely. I think he might be one of the best in this class after the catch. So there's a lot of things I really like about Tez Johnson. I'm interested to see how the NFL treats him because of his size.
I agree. My other guy here didn't have a good Senior Bowl week, and that is Xavier Restrepo from Miami. Back-to-back 1,100-yard seasons, 11 touchdowns this past year. Another guy that's probably going to be quantified as a slot-only guy. He did play a lot of it. His career, 91.7% out of the slot. But still, pretty physical guy for being 5'10", 198. I like what he brings to the table. Some good breakaways as well. Do you want to hear about his yak rate last year, Nate?
Of course.
7.3.
7.3. Like I said, anytime you're over 7, we get really excited about that.
We do. Nate especially gets, over 7, Nate gets excited. So do with that what you will. I should clip that one out for you there. So there's our top 5 wide receivers. I'm just going to go ahead and go over them again for you guys. 5 through 1, Nate has Jaden Higgins from Iowa State, Matthew Golden from Texas, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State, Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona, Luther Burden from Missouri, and my 5 through 1, Matthew Golden from Texas, Trey Harris from Ole Miss, Emeka Egbuka from Ohio State. Where am I? Luther Burden from Missouri, and Tetairoa McMillan from Arizona. So that's all we got for you guys tonight. Hope you enjoyed the podcast. Link for merch down below, patreon.com/Dynasty Rewind. Come hang out with us a week for free on me. Until next time, everybody. For Nate, I'm Mike. Thank you for listening.